Did you know there isn't just one English? We often think British or American English is the standard, right? But actually, English exists in many different forms around the world. World Englishes, or WE, means all the different versions of English spoken in different countries. Each version has its own accent, vocabulary, and style, influenced by local culture. For example, Indian English, Nigerian English, and Singaporean English are all World Englishes. These varieties show that English is not controlled by just native speakers. Instead, it belongs to everyone who uses it. English in each region adapts to local history, culture, and daily life. For instance, in India, English often mixed with Hindi. In Singapore, English blends with Chinese and Malay influences. For example, they may add la at the end of the sentence, which is unique to their English. And in Nigeria, local expression and tone shape English.
So I will talk about ELF, which means English as a lingua franca. ELF happen when people from different first languages use English to communication. Like for example, a Thai person and a Japanese person may not know each other's language, so they use English as a bridge to understand each other. The important point about ELF is that it's not about speaking perfect British or American English. Instead, about making communication successful, even if our grammar or accent is not perfect, as long as both sides understand that effective ELF. So, ELF show us that English today is truly an international tool, not owned by one country, but shared by people all around the world.
Differences between World English and English as a lingua franca. WE look at regional varieties of English in specific places, while ELF looks at global communication across border, regardless of where people come from. WE emphasizes cultural identity and local adaptation, while ELF emphasizes practical communication and understanding. Both share similarities in terms of recognize that English is not just one correct language and show that English is flexible, diverse, and shaped by its users. Both WE and ELF move away from the idea that only native speakers own English. So, World Englishes remind us that English is flexible, diverse, and global. There isn't only one correct English. There are many Englishes, and each reflects the culture of its speaker.
ELF refers to the use of English as a common means of communication between speakers of different first languages. It is not tied to any specific native variety of English, but rather adapts flexibly depending on context and participants. Interested in studying ELF to understand how English functions as a global communication on tool in international business, education, travel, and online interaction. To explore how speakers negotiate meaning, simplify structures, or borrow from their own languages when using English. To challenge the idea that only native speaker norm matters, highlighting instead the diversities and creativities and real-world English use to inform teaching and learning approaches that prepare learning for authentic global communication, not just native like accuracy.
Alright, let's move to the distinction between four important terms in English studies: World Englishes, English as a lingua franca, English as an international language, and English as a foreign language. First, World Englishes, or WE, refers to the different varieties of English used worldwide, shaped by local cultures and context. For example, Indian English and Singaporean English are considered part of World Englishes. And second, English as a lingua franca, or ELF, focuses on English as a tool for communication among people who do not share the same first language. It is less about native norm and more about mutual understanding in global communication. Third, English as an international language or EIL emphasizes English as a global means of interactions across nations. It underlines that English doesn't belong to one country, but is shared internationally. Finally, English as a foreign language or EFL describe English learning in contexts where English is not used daily, such as in Thailand or Japan. Here, English is mainly studied in classroom for academic or professional purpose. In summary, WE highlights varieties, ELF highlights communication, EIL highlights global ownership, and EFL highlights learning context. Understanding this term helps us see English not as one single standard, but as a dynamic and diverse language used worldwide.
Okay guys, I would like to talk about the natures of ELF communication and negotiation of meaning. ELF stands for English as a lingua franca. This refers to situations where people from different parts of the world use English to communicate, even if it is not the first language. According to Jenkins and colleagues, ELF communication is heterogeneous, meaning is very diverse. And why? Because ELF speakers come from different countries with different accents, different levels of English, and different cultural influence. As Coco and Dewey 2006 and Kirkpatrick 2010 and others explain, this diversity makes ELF communication flexible and adaptable. ELF users don't all speak the same kind of English. Some may use localized English varieties, but they can still communicate effectively. Instead of worrying about the perfect grammar, ELF speakers focus on getting their message across clearly. Even if the English is not perfect, they find strategy to make sure the other person understands. In short, the main goal is effective communication, not strict accuracy. Now, how do ELF speakers achieve this? They try to create mutual intelligibility, in other words, making sure they can understand each other. Coco and DeRay describe this as using both language and primitive resources to overcome problems and negotiate meanings. For example, speaker might repeat, rephrase, ask questions, or even use gestures to avoid misunderstanding. And Thomas reminds us that understanding each other is a process. It requires both talking and listening while considering the situation. Smith 2009 identified three factors that support successful communication. First, intelligibility, being able to hear and recognize the words someone says. And second, comprehensibility, being able to understand the meaning of those words. And the last one, interpretability, being able to understand the speaker's intention behind the words. If any of these three factors is missing, problem can occur such as misunderstanding or complete lack of understanding. So, to summarize, the natures of ELF communication is diverse, flexible, and focused on meaning rather than grammar. Negotiation of meaning is essential because it helps speakers achieve mutual understanding, and according to Smith, intelligibility, comprehensibility, and interpretability are the three keys that make ELF communication successful.
Next, I'm going to explain the nature of ELF communications, or the nature of English as a lingua franca. From this figure, we can see that the ELF communications happens between the speakers who are different in terms of language and culture, also called lingo-cultural differences, as well as in the level of English competence. So, when this speaker interacts, a misunderstanding may occur. That's why they need to engage in negotiation of meaning in order to reach mutual understanding. And one of the most common strategy is repetitions. For example, repeating the whole sentence, which is called simple repetitions, and repeating only part of it, partial repetitions, spelling word out or spelling out, or repeating with stretching or emphasis. This strategy makes the message clearer and reduce confusions. And in addition, ELF speakers also use reformulation strategy, such as repeating with added explanations, and rephrasing or paraphrasing, or expressing the same idea in a different way. And all of this help ensure better understanding between speakers. Another important part of it is checking comprehensions. The speaker may ask, "Do you understand?" Or listener may confirm, "Okay, I got it." And this helps both sides make sure they understand each other. They really understand each other. And when the listener doesn't understand, they may give certain signals, such as repeating the unclear words with rising intonations, or asking which questions, or using short or direct questions. So the key feature of ELF communications are fluidity and diversity. A speaker from different background and proficiency level can adjust their speech through repetitions, reformulation, and checking comprehensions checks until they reach mutual understanding. And that's the overview of the concept, the nature of ELF communications. And I hope these explanations makes the concept easier to understand.
Alright, let's take a look at some examples to see how the process of negotiation meaning really work in real tourist situation. These are things that happen all the time when people travel. And the first example is at the market. So, what's happening here? First, the seller asks a clarification because he is not sure what the tourist means. And then the tourist describes a bag by its use by saying, "for carry-on shoulder." The seller recasts it into the correct words, shoulder bag, and check if that's what the tourist means. And finally, the tourist confirms. In this way, both of them understand each other perfectly. The second example is in the taxi. So, the driver first clarifies and guesses what the tourist means. The tourist confirms, and the driver shows understanding with "got it." This prevents any confusions and makes sure they both know exactly where to go. So, in both examples, the pattern is clear. First, there is a misunderstanding, and then clarification, description of paraphrase, reformulation by listener, and confirmation. It is a simple but powerful way travelers and locals can communicate, even if neither speak perfect English. And that's how negotiation of meaning really work in real tourist situations.